Hey, it's your boy 950 Kev for the 950 Lounge Show with LeBron James and the radio game, the most electrifying man in media today. And I'm 1/5 of the best team in radio. So I'm joined by my brother Rodeo, the funny guy, just the classic man, the cynic, aka Mr. Roper, backstage Ed, and the lovely, super talented Steph Pearl. It's 950 Lounge every day, all day on multiple networks. So take us a listen, let us know what you think. Catch us at www.950lounge.com or my Instagram at 950kev. What's going on, yo? It's 950 Kev, 950 Lounge, and I'm in 950 Extras, where I get the one-on-one conversations with people you want to know about. Today, I have somebody who's very special. Ty Colonel, motivational speaker, actress, author, and just an American icon. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to 950 Extras with 950 Kev, the super talented, multi-talented Colonel Merryl Tengesdal. Good morning, Colonel. I'm still going to call you that because once a colonel, always a colonel. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Kevin. Thank you for having me. This is awesome. I love your energy.
Hey, listen, we got to bring it. Listen, look, when you talking to military folks, you got to bring the energy. Listen, y'all are 4 a.m. and I'll be very, before we get started, a little quick thing about energy. For me, like I was always a kind of a bad morning person. And I had to change that in my life as I got older. I said, Kevin, listen, you're closer to the 100 than you are to the 21. So you got to change some things. So I started to embrace morning and energy. And again, you started right, it just goes downhill. So I got to bring that for you. And I'm excited to talk to you. I mean, you are somebody, as we just, I just mentioned to you in the pre-up, we have a lot in common. Now, certainly I catch a nosebleed when I get on a roller coaster, but from a standpoint of our origins, you're from the Bronx, New York, very close proximity to where I grew up. We're the same age. You're not going to mention that, but we're born the same year.
Yes.
So from a standpoint, we are, people who have grown up in environments that were pretty challenging. Talk about growing up in the Bronx, New York, and this passion to touch the sky.
Yeah. So, growing up in the Bronx, Co-op City, went to Truman High School. You went to Evander rival schools.
EV, stand up.
Love it. My passion came at about 7 years old. So I watched too much Star Trek back in the day. I watched too much science fiction, and I love the fact of exploring strange new world, meeting people, going out into space. So that is in my mind at 7. I said, look, I'm going to become an astronaut.
Wow. So at the young age of 7, you already had the career. I didn't even know what cereal I wanted to eat at 7, but yet you knew what you wanted to do. And was that just from just TV? Was it family, inspirations, or this was just something Meryl pulled out herself?
Yeah, I think this was just from TV. And I'll tell you, growing up, I was raised primarily a single parent household. So it was just me and my mom. So it was around the time that I was 7 or 8. So some psychologists will be saying like, oh, this might have been a time for her and she started gravitating to something else. But I'll tell you, I love science fiction. I just love the unknown. So I just decided at that age, this was what I was going to do. And then at that moment when I decided that, I built this little framework. It was a very basic framework. I just said, look, I look at the characters of Star Trek. I said, they all went to Starfleet Academy, so I got to go to college. I got to be good in math and science. I want to fly the Enterprise, so I guess I'm going to have to be a pilot first before I fly the shuttle. Those were the closest things. Those were the similarities to me. So it wasn't about, did I see anyone who looked like me that did it? All I saw is that these people were doing something that was really cool, and I wanted in.
Fantastic. So when you tell your mother this, right? Because it's obviously you and mom, and obviously me and my siblings, we grew up mostly with just our mother. Something that I think we also changed. Father's Day, be a father. When you tell mom this, right? And you say, hey mom, I'm watching Star Trek, and those characters seem intimate. I'm gonna do just that. What's mom's response at 7? She just laughed it off like, hey, Meryl just an insightful young girl, or did she like, hey, listen, let's sit down and map this out. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I didn't think she she didn't say like you can't do it, but
Mm-hmm.
she was just like, okay. Like she didn't make a big deal about it because I think most people at that when you're at that age saying those things, people think, ah, it's just a phase, you'll get
Yeah.
out, you'll grow out of it, it
Yeah.
won't be a big deal. So, she didn't think anything of it.
Right.
And I think that was when I look back, that's a good thing. Like
Yeah.
she didn't like squash the idea and say no, because back in the 70s growing up, I mean, women had these specific roles.
Yeah.
So, I remember growing up, your choices were being a secretary, being a nurse, being a teacher, these very gentle roles. And I was
Yeah.
out there, in the mud, swinging a baseball, throwing footballs, hanging out with the guys, getting made fun of because I was
Uh-huh.
outside the norm. Like, how come you don't like to wear dresses? Blah, blah, blah. Like in the
Yeah.
70s, that was a big deal. You got made
Yeah.
fun of for being a tomboy. So I think my mom just saw me as that kid that was like, oh, she's different. So we gonna work this out. So
No doubt.
yeah,
No
but
doubt.
that fascination kept growing.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily, I had some mentors in my life, especially growing up. I used to go to an after school center, and there was a lady there that caught wind who was in charge of it, who knew I loved Star Trek, and she loved Star Trek. So she started
Wow.
bringing her books in for me to read.
Yeah.
And everyone knows now, like growing up, if you give a child something to read and they keep reading, I mean,
That's
that's
yeah. That's
priceless.
sticky glue. Yes. No doubt.
Yes, it's price. That is just a leveling up that most people are unaware of. So um, I would just read. I would read upwards of maybe 2 books a day in addition
Mm.
to doing schoolwork because
Yeah.
I was so enamored with Star Trek and I just wanted to absorb as much as possible. So for those parents out there that have kids that want to do stuff, feed into that passion, feed
Yes.
into it. Even if they don't do it, just feed into it because it will lead them down the road to something else.
No doubt, no doubt. Again, we're talking to retired Colonel Merryl Tengesdal, 950 extras, 950 Kev. So again, you start to build this from just a fascination to something that you really was. This is core. So what I want to do. You mentioned Truman High School, and I know Truman has a very good science. They got that planetarium there. I remember that. It's set in the planetarium. So in high school, as you're in the high school years and we're talking again the mid 80s and stuff like that. Um, did you have a blueprint as now you start to develop? You have your mentors. Now you say, hey, now this is the reality. I know the scope. Talk about that aspect with grades and getting to school. And again, the challenges of being a black woman growing up in a time where this was not common.
Right. So you're right. We do have a planetarium. We also have it was at that time a Native American museum, right?
Yeah.
So we have that in Truman. It's like 7 stories, huge, huge high school.
Mm-hmm.
I was on the planetarium squad, by the way. I just want to let you know.
Okay.
So I was still into it. I was still focusing on math and science.
Yeah.
I was in honors classes. I was in honors math. I was in all the honors classes. So in high school, it was really about the planetarium squad was this great place where I could teach kids about stars and different constellations and still have my passion.
Yeah.
If you read my book, Shatter the Sky, in high school, I got into a little bit of trouble. I did a little bit of mischievous things like
Mm.
any teenager would
It
do.
happens.
It happens. The cool thing about being part of the planetarium squad is they gave us access. We had keys, access to the building at
Yeah.
off hours, and I kind of did something.
Uh,
No one was hurt.
no one was hurt in this demonstration of being young and innocent and maybe a little dumb at times. We
Yeah, yeah,
kids.
younger. So no one was hurt. There was some damage caused. They didn't know it was
Mhm.
me. When I let it out in the book, I had some calls, and they were like, my friends were like, "That was you who did that? You and 2 other people?" I said, "Shh."
Meryl?
So, at that point in high school, I was really as you're going to college, it's like, hey, what am I going to do now? Like,
Yeah,
what am I gonna go to college? The answer is yes. Um, Throughout my time in high school, I did a lot of summer programs
yeah.
that were geared towards math and science. So I
Mhm.
did one which was called Science Technology Entry Program at University of Binghamton. So there are summer programs that you could do that are STEM like or STEAM like,
Right.
and so they were free. I would apply to them. I would get picked up for them. The same lady who gave me the Star Trek books, like I said, she was an educator. she had a list of all these different programs available to kids in the city. And so
Yeah.
my mom looked at me, she's like, "You're gonna pick one. You're gonna do this. If this is so important to you, pick it." So
Right.
my mom, she didn't push me, but she said, "This is what I'm gonna do."
That focus from
So
mom is like, let's drill down a little bit.
yeah,
Yeah.
so with that, it kind of helped drill it into what kind of engineering I was going to do in college because
Right.
I was going to either do aerospace, aeronautical, but a lot of my studies in high school were geared towards electrical engineering.
Yeah.
I did stuff at Bronx High School of Science for the
Mhm.
summer programs. I did a whole bunch of stuff just to be inundated with these different fields so I could pick something in the science field, whether it was
Mhm.
research I was interested in, genetics for biology,
Yeah.
whatever. And so that led me to go to college at the University of New Haven.
Go
Uh,
Chargers.
yeah, yes, to get
I
a
got
degree.
recruited. This is really weird. Uh,
What?
this I got recruited by the University of New Haven. Now, again, I was kind of a cocky kid out of this is not about me, but I was recruited there too. I almost went to University of New Haven. I had an offer letter, and we might have been college mates.
Oh my gosh. I played 1 year of they had Division II basketball, so I
Yeah.
played 1 year. I was a walk-on at the
Uh-huh.
good time, did ROTC, but I went there to do the electrical engineering program. So I got picked up for that program.
Without question. So again, I know it's just uncanny. I know. Like I said, a big shout to Yvonne and your team. I don't know. Maybe they did some research on me. Maybe the news is perfect fit up for us. But you go to University of New Haven, and obviously that passion is still there. So as you're going to college and you staying focused on what you want to do, was it other things that come into play? Because you know how when you get to college, you get away from home, and you're on your own. Sometimes other interests come in. Was it anything that ever deterred that, or like you were still on this stealth mission, no pun intended, to be to touch the sky? Talk about that in the college years.
Yeah, I mean, college years, yeah, there's one big thing. Men, yes, boys. Like the college life,
The
I
opposite
can't,
sex.
yeah, I'm gonna be real. You know, I didn't go to the academies. I wasn't interested because I wanted to
Right,
experience the college life and I
right.
wanted to study. I wanted to meet friends.
Have a balance.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I wanted this balance, but I mean, and then the ratio, I think at University of New Haven, there were more guys than girls at that school. So
yeah.
I was like, yes, please. So I mean, so my first couple of years, I partied a lot.
Yeah.
I I studied, I partied, I did basketball, I did ROTC,
Right. Full
I did
college
women's
balanced
studies.
life.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I was burning the candles at both ends, and it was only until my junior year I actually failed a class. I failed my first class
Mm,
my junior year.
okay.
It was a dynamics class.
Yeah.
So you figure, electrical engineering, you're not taking like philosophy, no offense to
Right.
philosophy. You're taking, you're coming off the bat, first year, Calc 1, Calc 2, second year, Calc 3 differential, Calc 3 differential equations,
Hmm.
linear algebra. You're doing all this. So I'm taking 18 credit hours. I'm playing basketball.
Yeah.
I'm doing all these other things. So something had to give. And then
Yeah.
finally, when my grades suffer, I said, okay, it's time to lock it down because the focus is to, become an astronaut, get my degree, go to the next step, which is to learn to fly. And University of New Haven, the other reason why I picked that school because it had a good aviation program. So I thought
Mhm.
I would meet some pilots. I had some friends who were pilots. They would take me up once in a
Right.
while, and just to get to fly a little bit because I couldn't afford that. So
Yeah. No doubt. No doubt.
yeah.
So let's take a quick break. I want to come back because once we get through the adolescent years and college years, you attend the Air Force. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. Retired Colonel Merryl Tengesdal is 950 extras, 950 cap. Come on back.
I'm a New Yorker, born and bred, and everything that New York has to offer really is a part of me. The hustle, the bustle, the ambition. That's what I infuse in my customers every day, helping them to feel comfortable in their clothing and look elegant no matter what neighborhood they travel in. When a customer puts on a Fear God custom suit for the first time, their smile is very contagious. They're standing in the mirror and that they look good. They're more confident. They see the fit, the fabric, The color is just perfect for them. Honestly, that's my favorite part of being a clothier. I get asked all the time, well, what is a clothier? The clothier has been around for a long time. It dates back to the 19th century. The men would make private appointments with their tailors and look at the latest fabrics and create a custom wardrobe. Clothiers today carry on that exact same tradition. We show up to your home, your office, tape in hand, fabric books, and we're ready to help you create that one-of-a-kind custom wardrobe that you can be proud of from season to season. The right fit is going to give you a confidence you've never experienced before. But more importantly, you're going to enjoy wearing your clothes. My expertise really lies in that ability to measure my customers with precision and knowing them, knowing what's going to really look best on them. What color is going to complement their complexion, their hair color, eye color? What can I put together that's going to make them exude confidence because of their wardrobe? It's really being a full-time consultant, whether they're clothes need dry cleaning, repairing buttonholes, and replacing their socks for them. That's what you get with Tengesdal Custom Clothiers. It's one thing to live life. I want my customers to live life stylishly.
We're back on the ride, 950 Extras, 950 Kev. Again, talking to retired Colonel Merryl Tengesdal, BX native. Somebody I probably ran into in the supermarket and didn't even know it. But anyway, so again, we left off talking about your time at University of New Haven. And obviously you graduate from University of New Haven and you go on to the U.S. Naval, you go to the Navy. Talk about that experience and how you first started with the Navy, then eventually moved on to the Air Force.
So when I got my degree, I stopped. Like I said, I went to ROTC for 2 years at UNH. I did Air Force ROTC, and quite frankly, at this time, the Air Force wasn't really for me. I just didn't the people. I wasn't feeling it.
So you did have an opportunity to go to Air Force, but it wasn't your vibe at that moment.
It was not.
Got it.
So eventually, I graduated, got my degree in electrical engineering. At that point, it was up for debate whether I was going to try and go to the Air Force or Navy. But I did some research and found that a lot of astronauts were naval aviators.
Right.
So I said, okay, I want to go to the Navy. And I had talked to this gentleman who was a cop, actually, in the Bronx, in Co-op City. Don't laugh. His name was actually Officer Bacon. So he kind of convinced me. He's like, you got to go Navy. It's harder to land on boats than it is on the flat surface. So I said, okay. But when I started to look into recruiting, a lot of the guys, they were enlisted recruiters at the time. I didn't know there was a difference. And they were like, we don't have pilot slots. You can do everything else. And I said, well, I'm not interested in that. So eventually I went to the
you could
Army.
have did that right out of high school in that case.
Yeah. So I actually turned to the Army and they said they had a warrant officer program for me to fly helicopters. Not my ideal choice, but I was going to sign up. I took the ASVAB, did very well.
Nice.
I mean, engineering degree, taking an ASVAB, it's pretty straightforward. Okay. So at that point, I was going to sign up, but then I was dating a guy who was in the Navy, who was on the West Coast. He called the recruiter out there in San Diego, and they got in touch with me, and they said, if you could get out here, take the test, pass the test, we'll get you a pilot slot. And I was like, bet.
Yeah.
And I was like, say less. So I jumped on a bus, took a 5-day bus trip out to San Diego.
Wait, whoa. Pause. You took a bus to San Diego.
Yes.
That's not easy, ladies and gentlemen. That's a pretty intense ride.
I wouldn't recommend it because they're as wild. My mom still gets mad. She was mad at me. She was like, I'll pay for, your plane ticket or whatever.
Right.
And I was like, no, I'm a grown adult. I don't have a lot of money. I can afford a bus ticket. This is my life. So let's, I'm going to take charge of it. So I'm going to go out there. The guy I was dating at the time worked in Marine Air Corps Station Yuma, which was close to San Diego. So I went there, stayed there, and then I went over to San Diego to take the test. I went 5-day bus trip. I went across America. Didn't take a shower. Didn't do, there's a lot of
things you didn't do in those. 5 days on a bus is pretty intense.
Yeah,
I met some really savory characters too.
Yeah, one time we had to stop the bus because someone had a knife on the bus. you know, it was. I do not recommend doing that now. I'm sure it's even wilder. So
Builds character though. Builds character.
Bill's character don't kill you. Bill's character. So I got out there, took the test, passed the test. They put my package together and they said, we'll get back to you. So waited a couple of months, came back to New York City, started working down in Manhattan at this place, Macmillan Publishing Company, doing some
Okay.
data entry work,
Yeah.
pay, and waiting for the results. And then I got picked up. I got picked up for Officer Candidate School
Nice.
for the Navy in 94, and I started in June of 1994.
Fantastic. So you're in the Navy now. You're kind of reaching those dreams that a young Merrill had, and you're on your way. What made the switch? Was it just the progression? Was it something that inspired you? Talk about eventually having to now move to Air Force and get in planes. How's
Yeah.
that journey go?
Yeah, so then I was in the Navy for 10 years. So I flew helicopters. I started out flying helicopters. I came back as an instructor in the T-6, which is a fixed wing aircraft.
Right.
Towards the end, my goal was to try and get into test pilot school. I didn't make it in the Navy. There were some things that happened during my helicopter tour
Right.
that kind of were probably the reasons for it,
Yeah.
but it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was going to get out of the Navy, and I was working as an instructor in Air Force Base. And my boss was like, "You should come to the Air Force and fly with us." And I was like, "Oh, let me think about it," because I was going to go back to college and get my PhD, get my master's PhD,
Right.
and then go to NASA that route.
Mm.
And so I started looking into the programs that they had for Air Force for people transitioning inter-service, what they call inter-service transfer from one service to another.
Right.
And they had, F-117s at the time, B-52s, B-2s, and then the U-2. So the guy I was dating, who's now my husband, he was talking about the U-2s, and I started looking into it, and I enjoyed the mission. I looked at it, it was high altitude pressure suit, which is a NASA spacesuit, basically. Curvature of the Earth, on the edge of space, you're doing all these cool things, and then
Wow.
I was doing missions that I did in my helicopter days. And so I said, this sounds pretty neat. And at that time, I was thinking about when I applied to NASA, how am I going to make my resume look different from everyone else's?
Right.
Because when you're applying for these elite or high level of these unique positions, as I found as you get older, people are looking for what's special about you. Why do they want you? If you're like everyone else and go down the same path, okay, you might get the job, you might not. But if you do things that are unique, I think that opens up the door for you and it makes you this special tool or the special, you've branded yourself in a way, because we didn't use the term brand until, dare say, the Kardashians came out and started branding themselves.
Sure.
And so that's essentially what I was thinking about. Like, man, my resume would look different. And maybe that's something that they want. So I applied for the U2s and got picked up. It's a 2-week interview process. 50% of the people that get picked up for an interview get hired because you have to actually fly the plane. So that's how I made the jump from the Navy to the Air Force. So I wasn't upset with the Navy or anything. It was just, this was part of
the growth in your career.
Yeah. So I talk about it a lot in my speeches about, being prepared when the opportunity arises, or, despite the circumstances, always look for opportunities. And this was an opportunity. I didn't know what it was going to lead to. I had no idea. I just knew I was flying aircraft, I was doing a mission, and I was getting closer to my goal of being an astronaut. So why not take that?
No doubt. Again, we're talking to Merryl Tengesdal. I'm saying that right. I'm gonna keep saying it right. I'm gonna be saying it all evening. Again, retired colonel. Being a Black woman in this industry, being a woman in general in this industry, did you feel like you always had to like overachieve and overexcel? Because obviously, whether you experienced it head on, I know being a Black man, in the industry I'm in, I always feel like whether somebody puts it in my face or not, I always feel like just from history of our culture, I gotta be 3,000 times better. Did you feel that way as well? Like, look, you know what? Everything I'm attacking Full Metal Jacket, because some of the stuff you telling me, you got to have some courage, like to be like I told you before, I don't want to go on a roller coaster. Some of this stuff you got to have some courage that you just kind of feel like, you know what, this is bigger than just Meryl.
Yeah. Yes. So you're always going to feel that pressure behind you because even as a flight student, like there are moments in my life that I've doubted myself. Like, am I supposed to be here? We call it imposter syndrome now,
Yeah,
right? So I walk in the room and I'm 99.9% the only person who looks like me in that room.
yeah,
Okay. Whether it's in a flight room or the ready room, whether it's at a table at a meeting with a bunch of generals or my colonel peers, I'm typically the only one. And I had to always in the back of my mind go to my first instructor who taught me how to fly, who said, "Hey, when you walk into a room, people are going to think a lot of things about you. They're going to say you're here because of X, Y, or Z, or think you're not supposed to be here." And he's like, "You were one of the best students I've ever flown with. If you keep performing at that level, eventually, when you walk into the room, they're going to say you're here because you're damn good."
yes,
And that's all. I always carry that with me. So and I know I can perform at a very high level. I do put a lot of pressure on myself because I want to be the best. Because when you fly aircraft, you can't have a bad day. Like you can't slip because that bad day may cost money and heaven forbid it costs lives and it costs you your life. So you have to be on top of your A game. You have to do everything from um, making sure your body's okay, making sure your mind is right, being able to compartmentalize. In the U2, there's no bathroom. We're flying by ourselves. You got to eat right because if you had Taco Tuesday and you're on a flight and you have a, a problem with get the bubble guts, you're coming back and
trouble.
you destroy you ruin the mission and
Yeah,
people on the ground who are relying on the information that you're going to get.
right.
So you have to operate at that level. And I think, it's funny because as as you get to that level and then you as a leader, you start leading more and more people and you start understanding these things and still have to operate at that level.
Right.
When you become a civilian, it's very eye-opening.
No doubt. And again, you were the first to fly to U2, first woman to fly to U2,
First,
which again,
well,
I'm sorry,
first black woman to fly to U2.
first black
Yes.
woman, right. But nevertheless, a first. And for those boys and girls who don't know, because listen, I ain't know either. It's a single jet engine. So like it's just you and the wheel. Let's go to work. So again, just phenomenal. And as I mentioned in the beginning of this interview, American icon, and that is true. So you spend 19 years of service, you retire in 2015. Give me the day. I'm curious to know this because I'm still working. I mean, I'm still on the books. Give me the day you felt when you had that last day. Was it a sense of like, "Ooh, I did this," or was it a sense of what I'm gonna do next?
Yeah, so my in 2015, I had my last U2 flight.
Mm-hmm.
So I went on to the Pentagon and stayed there for another 2 years and retired in 2017. So
Okay.
my last day, my actual retirement date is November. So I had some months where I was getting paid to just have a vacation.
Just chilling. Yep.
Yeah, when I did my retirement ceremony, and it was over, you take that moment to reflect about everything you've done.
Yeah.
And I always tell people when you're on a journey in life, take a moment to appreciate all the things and the trail that you blaze behind you
Yeah.
and how many people that you'll be able to help maybe walk a similar path. So I enjoyed it. After my retirement ceremony, I had my son at the time. He was 4.
Right.
He got to be in part of the ceremony. He got to get on stage. So I
Wow.
think that was very, that was a great moment for him. I got to recognize all the people who helped me. I got to see my old instructor, my first instructor that I just talked about. He was there after, 20 plus years. We got
Yeah.
to see each other again. Um, yeah, I just enjoyed the moment, and then I packed up out of DC and came back to California. So it
And
was
I'm
tough.
sure this was not a bus ride this time.
No, it wasn't a bus ride. We took, we drove, took our time, and then I, enjoyed the house, unpacked the house, and then I
Yeah.
said, okay, well, I knew kind of what I'm that person that's always forward thinking.
Yeah.
So at this point, I knew I was going to be a personal trainer. I wanted to motivate people through fitness. I wanted to motivate people through what I talked about. Coming from the Pentagon, and seeing as a colonel the influence and the impact that I have, the networking capability, I wanted to pay that forward. So I
Yeah.
wanted to help other kids who, regardless of ethnicity or race, I just wanted to help kids become a better version of themselves. I wanted to help people become better versions of themselves because especially, fast forward to COVID, fast
Yeah.
forward to now in the state
Yeah.
that we're in. I think people need that push more than ever.
No doubt.
Um, and that's what I'm here for. That's why I talk. That's why I talk at companies, Fortune 500 companies. That's why I talk at schools, elementary schools. That's why I go to underserved communities and talk and interact with people because I want them to be the best version of themselves. I don't want them to get beaten down. I don't want them to say, this is my environment, this is all I got. I mean, we
Yeah.
came from the Bronx and we're doing some great, phenomenal things
Yeah.
despite the circumstances. So it's all about getting those touch points to people to say, look at me, you can do the same thing. Let's go.
No doubt. And again, I mean, when you talk about just, it's not where you start, it's where you finish. I
Absolutely.
mean, and I love the fact that, it's you can I mean, obviously you're doing those things and we're going to touch on that in the next segment, but you're a perfect example of somebody like, listen, you don't have to have a wicked jump shot even though you did play basketball, but you could do things and touch and affect and change the world just by following your dreams, and you've laid that blueprint. So I truly appreciate that from another Bronx homie to another. We're going to take another quick break. We're going to come back. I want to talk about what you got doing now. You're a successful author. You mentioned personal trainer and obviously motivational speaking. You done a little acting. We're gonna touch on that a little bit. Again, we're talking to retired Colonel Merryl Tengesdal. It's not for the extras. Come on back. We're back on the ride, 950 Extras, 950 Kev, 950 Lounge Show, and then we're having a fantastic conversation with I shouldn't say former, retired Colonel Merryl Tengesdal. You're never former in any life. Retired, that's a good thing. We get to retirement, that means we've done our job well.
Yes.
But again, like I said, now you're more than just your service. You're doing a lot of things. You've written a book. You've appeared on a CBS show. You've done a lot of things. So talk about the second act of Meryl. Obviously, what you're doing now.
Yeah, it has been surprising for me, but I'm rolling with it and I'm taking advantage of all of it. So
Yeah.
shortly after I retired, I got a job as a trainer at the gym, just get some experience. And
Mm-hmm.
through that, I got picked up by CBS to do season 2 of Tough as Nails.
That had to
Um,
be kind of cool. How'd
oh,
that process go? Did you have to apply for it, or because of your background, did they find you?
because of my background, because of my social media. So it was crazy.
Nice.
Like I just started doing social media. I got an Instagram, put an account, and I'm like, what is this beast? And I'm trying to figure it out. And then you may not this may not look like me, but I like doing dances. Like I'm not good at dancing, but I like showing my energy and just hitting something so
Now
that
you from the BX. So what you doing? The WAP? You doing the cab? What you doing? What you doing?
I don't know.
Running Man?
I was just feeling myself that day. I put Lizzo on. I was waiting for some clients. I started dancing and you know, I was like hyping off the screen and
Lean back, lean back. I
yeah,
got you.
the producer, the casting producer saw it on
Wow.
Facebook and she reached out to me. She's like, hey, we talked later and she said, I saw your video. And then she's like, I looked at your Instagram and she's like, I scrolled back and she was like, oh my gosh, because like my first post was like my retirement post. I was in
Yeah.
my pressure suit. with my helmet, my U2, these big black aircraft in the background.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, you would be perfect to share your story
Yes.
on Tough as Nails. And so we'd love for you to interview. And at first I thought it was a scam, but I looked it up and then I said, I'm in, let's go. So I interviewed and I got picked up for the show. So for season
Nice.
2. And it was an amazing experience. It was great. And it just started opening the doors. As soon as that aired, I think that was life changing. The moment um, I remember it like it's yesterday, 2021.
Mm-hmm.
CBS was hosting the Super Bowl, and the halftime show the weekend just performed. And they showed one commercial, and then the next one was Tough as Nails. And the first thing you hear is my voice saying,
Wow.
I'm the first and only Black woman to fly to YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
My phone blew up. It exploded.
Yeah.
It didn't stop. And from that point on, it's just been, I picked up a speaking agent. Now I have Yvonne Forbes with La Bella Diva.
Salute
Uh,
to Yvonne.
yes, and I just, I picked up more speaking engagements with
Yeah.
different companies, and I do stuff privately, and it's just not stopped. So I just share my story. I inspire people. I talk to as many kids as possible. I use this as an opportunity to spread my message,
Yes.
inspire, motivate people, and I have my kids, so my kids can see this.
Yeah.
During COVID, we ended up adopting a young girl that we were
Blessings.
fostering. So,
Blessings.
and then it came out with the book at the same time, and now the audiobook. So, retirement, kind of.
Whatever, listen, it ain't retirement. Whatever, what you just in act 2, then that's what it's all about. So
Right.
when we sit back and again, when we hear all this about what you're doing, family, wife, mother, inspiration, when you look at the world we're in now, right? And again, I know not to make this political, we go into a lot of things. What do you want to give off to tell people? I know you're a motivational speaker, so give me 5 things that you would tell somebody who's going through it, who's in the blender right now, and like I don't know where to go with life. Nothing seems to work. I hear people like Kevin and Meryl talking, and it inspires me, but it just doesn't mix. What would you say to somebody that in that ilk?
So, what I would say is number one, if you're staying in the house waiting for things to happen to you, it's not going to. So you need to get out and do. So whether that's get up and work out,
Yeah,
because I'm a huge proponent of getting up, walking, changing your environment, changing your location. That's huge.
yeah,
People really underestimate the power of exercise in terms of helping mental health, making you feel better, changing your mindset. Um, Real quick, I had a kid, one of my first clients. He was about 13 years old at the time. He suffered from anxiety.
mm,
He was seeing a therapist. He was homeschooled, all this stuff. One of my things I love to do is teach boxing for fitness, martial arts for fitness. I worked with him for 2 years, and this kid dropped about 30 pounds.
wow,
He, his the anxiety level decreased significantly, and they'll tell you that's what happens. He started going to school, in person. He started blossoming into this young man. Now he's going through puberty and all this stuff, so I'm not taking credit for all that,
right,
but I would say this helped in certain ways. And I think when we were in lockdown for years or 2 years, some people are still scared to go out.
yeah,
I think it's hard to be isolated as social creatures. Sometimes we see a side of ourselves that we don't like, and the
yeah,
way to help that is to get out, work out, interact with people, even though you're afraid to do a little bit each day.
yeah,
So that's what I recommend for people. And I know there are people, I have friends right now, some of them are dealing with substance abuse issues.
mm,
I got friends that are, really depressed, and we work through it. And I try to be that um, person that's a friend, a supporting friend. So
yeah,
that's what I try to do with them. So yes, life is hard, but you got to get out. Take
yeah,
that effort to be okay. Change is coming. Have
yes,
that in your mind, and it'll be good. I mean, don't let that isolation get you. Only if you're flying a U-2.
No doubt, no doubt.
Yeah.
And you said it all, because it's a situation where, people are afraid to fail, but not trying is failure itself. And you being a military person, the men of the 62nd Airborne, they were afraid, but they went anyway. One of my former coaches used to always tell me that, like, when you think you got fear, think about what they had to do and perseverance they went through. So I salute you for that.
Thank you. And for people, if you're gonna fail, fail spectacularly. Like,
Yes.
go out there and eat it. Like get up and just do it. And I
Yeah.
will tell you, in that process of failing, there's so much growth.
Yes.
In that struggle. It's like lifting weights. Your muscles get fatigued, they may fail, but the next day they come back stronger.
Yeah.
So that's how life is like that.
Yeah. It's a mosaic of ups and downs, but it doesn't rain forever. Sun's gonna shine one day if you're around. The sun's gonna come out. Mel, this
Absolutely.
has been such a great conversation. I can't thank you enough. As you know, we're both Bronxites. The next time you're in New York, I'm saying it on camera. I know we talked about it offline. Please, you're welcome to the gallery. I can't eat seafood because I'm allergic, but everybody else around me can. City Island. But nevertheless, I would love to have you on the couch at our show, because it's so much I haven't even had. I mean, we could talk all day. I didn't, I have a bunch of notes here. It's just, you are a phenomenal individual. You are an American icon, an American hero, and an inspiration to all. Where can people find you? More information, book you for gigs. Where can they reach out and touch you?
So if you want to book me for gigs, you can contact Harry Walker Speaking Agency or Yvonne Forbes from La Bella Diva. You can want to, hey, reach out to me. I'm on Instagram. That's my home. I'm Dragon Lady 788. Dragon Lady because it's the name of the U2. This was the shirt I wore in Tough as Nails. 788 is my pilot number, so it's easy to remember. Or you can find me on Facebook, Merryl Tengesdal. I got a YouTube account. Please subscribe. I got some good content on there, some motivational stuff, some workout stuff. And then LinkedIn, of course, for all you professionals. And yeah, MerrylTengesdal.com if you want to send me an email or subscribe to my subscriber list.
You've said all. Again, retired Colonel Merryl Tengesdal.
And
Thank you so much. Yes, yes.
yeah, one more thing.
Yeah.
Shatter the Sky. Can I show you? Can I share my book?
Of course, please.
I'm almost
I'm going to Amazon after this. I'm gonna order me one because I believe in supporting business. I don't ask for stuff for free. There you go.
Shatter the Sky, Audible, or on Amazon, or where books are sold. Just order it.
No doubt. Again, retired Colonel Merryl Tengesdal. Thank you so much. It's been a blessing having you on 950 Lounge, 950 Extras. Thank you guys for listening. To the next time, always stay blessed and go reach for your dreams. Take care.